Now, don't get me wrong, I love Chicago's classic holiday traditions, but every year I'm looking for something a little different. You know, a place I can go not only to find some good gifts for my people, but also have a good time. And that's why I want to put y'all on the Sauce Holiday Night Market. They got food, cocktails, a DJ, and some of the coolest artists and craftspeople across the Midwest. Unique gifts like handmade joint holders, jewelry made out of different kind of animal bones, stained glass in the shape of butts, and sure, if you're into it, Malort flavor hot sauce. It's at the Chicago Athletic Association on December 12th and 13th, Friday and Saturday from 5 to 10 p.m. It's free to attend, but if you RSVP, you could win $50 to spend. Learn more at RSVP at saucedmarket.com. Y'all already know I love Chicago. Even when it's cold outside, when my train late, even when the news is frustrating as hell, I always feel connected to this city. And it's that exact feeling of connection that drove us to create the CityCast Chicago Neighbors program. Yes, it's a way to support the show and the newsletter, but it's also a way to get more out of Chicago, more out of us. When you're a neighbor, you'll get an early look at events coming up around the city. You can shout out local businesses and organizations you love, use our platform to put them on, and you can get the chance to join us for members-only experiences. When you become a CityCast Chicago neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm, you're going to get our brand new first-of-its-kind CityCast Chicago beanie. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. Today on CityCast Chicago, what's next for the South Shore residents of a rundown and raided apartment complex? Plus, dibs are back in full force this year, and it's the rise of the delivery robot. It's Tuesday, December 9th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We've got executive producer Simone Alisea back in the building. It's good to have you, my friend. How you feeling?
I'm okay, Jacoby. How are you?
I'm good. You back just in time for a Bears loss, it seems. And so your timing obviously could not be any better, apparently.
I'm sorry. That one was really rough. I on Sunday, I saw a video of a bunch of people like cheering in a bar. And I was like, oh, man, did the Bears win? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, I wonder how Jacoby's feeling right now.
Yeah, that video from the Tribe down on the south side at the Family Den in Calumet Heights was taken right after we tied the game up. And all of the, the F Green Bay chants was going on and we was feeling ourselves and the defense was holding strong. But, Things don't always go your way. Play works one week, doesn't work the next when you miss the check down. But I will say, on a positive note, though, you are back just in time for our end of the year membership campaign. We are in day 2, and this is when we ask our listeners to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. And for just $10 a month or $100 a year, neighbors get to ensure that this podcast and this newsletter that we all love so much can keep connecting you to the city for maybe another 5 years or so, right? So you could join at membership.citycast.fm.
I think what listeners need to realize is that by listening to the show, it's already clear that you care a lot about Chicago. You celebrate what makes it special. You care about the issues that shape this city. And becoming a neighbor can help you deepen that connection, especially, I think, there are lots of perks, right? There are all the kinds of perks to membership. You get the ad-free listening. But, I think that becoming a neighbor also just helps you deepen your connection to Chicago because you get invites to these members-only events where you get to connect to people in real life. You literally get to make connections. But also, of course, you get a weekly preview of events happening around Chicago, help you get out, enjoy the city, do fun stuff. And then, of course, you are supporting this local team doing local work. You are helping everyone else be able to hear all of the reporting that we bring you, the news, these conversations about Chicago. Jacoby, I want to give listeners an example of this. Can you tell us what's one thing that we did this year that made you feel more connected to Chicago?
Gee, where do I start? This was a big year for us. Shout out to our entire staff, everybody who's helping us build out this year. We celebrated 1,000 episodes and 4 years of CityCast Chicago and Hey Chicago. And we had a big party that people came out to. But I have to say, probably the birding. That was one of my favorite membership events. We did a tour downtown. Yeah, we pulled up at the Removal, but when we went birding out at Northerly Island a couple months ago, that was very relaxing. I got to have like these like small little one-on-one moments and like take walks with a couple of people some who had just moved here, people who had lived here their whole life. And it was clear that not only did some people love Chicago, but in other cases, some people, they was like, man, on Chicago. They was like, I like this place. I love it, but I really like y'all. I really love Michelle, Simone, Jacoby, Emmy, Rick. And so I want to support y'all. And so I'm out here to hang out with y'all. And that was really cool because obviously we do this with Chicago top of mind. We want people to feel more connected to the city at the end of the day. But the fact that over these years, people also feel a little connected to us and want to support the work that we do has been really gratifying.
I think that's the definition of neighbor, right? The thing is like, it's the people that make up the city. So if you're connecting to the people in the city, if that's us, then you are connecting to the city of Chicago. Whether supporting this work is really, really important to you, you really care about it, you want to make sure there's more of it, or you just want the perks, you can sign up today at membership.citycast.fm. Plus, one more benefit that I did not mention is that anyone who joins this week gets the brand new CityCast Chicago beanie. I'm so excited about this, Jacoby. I've been asking for a beanie for so long. I am totally thrilled that we're going to be able to offer this as a perk to our new neighbors during this campaign. So if you want the beanie, all the other great benefits, you join at membership.citycast.fm.
Last night at Karaoke Storytellers, it was a beautiful show, and I had this moment at the end where a listener came up to me and thanked us for the work we have been doing over the last few months, in particular, as we've been really kind of zoning in, covering as much of Operation Midway Blitz, as much of this terror and chaos campaign as we possibly can. It kind of reminded me as we've talked, in the last few weeks about Operation Midway Blitz, in some ways slowing down. Like, this is a thing that is very present in our city, and the consequences are something that we are going to be living with and feeling for months and months and years to come. And I think one story that is so emblematic of this is the story of that massive military style raid that took place on a South Shore apartment complex at the end of September, where dozens and dozens of people, some people were new arrivals and immigrants to the city. Some were longtime Black residents of Chicago, had their doors kicked in, their families zip tied, then paraded into the streets with helicopters over the top, with dozens of armed agents and lights. And they were, some were barely dressed and sort of, zip tied and detained for hours. And that was really this sort of flash moment of what these operations can look like. But Simone, long after the helicopter was gone, and the TV cameras were gone, the story of this apartment complex really started to come into full focus, and it went far beyond just this raid. What have we learned in the months since about what the people who were living at 7500 South Shore were dealing with?
Yeah, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show that, prior to this raid that, as you said, I think was such a flashpoint moment in Operation Midway Blitz for so many people. I think well before this, tenants of that building had struggled with, infestation, pests, sewage, struggled with leaks, struggled with getting just the building not being up to date, the elevator not working, just all kinds of stuff going on there.
Power outages.
They had a lot of trouble with the landlord and the property management company that oversaw that building. And, even going back as far as 2024, it had a lot of issues. The owner had been, sued over building code violations, and already the process had begun the bank had been trying to foreclose on this building against the owner, who is Trinity Flood, a Wisconsin-based real estate developer. And so after the raid, a lot of these issues came to light, because we saw, the images of these boarded up windows and like doors knocked down and right after the raid. And then a lot of the tenants came out and said like, well, actually, it was kind of this bad all along. Like, this is only a little bit worse than what it was like even before these agents came in. And after the raid, during the foreclosure process, the property was put into receivership. Basically, that's when the court is like, you landlord, it's sort of the last step before like foreclosure. It's like, you are not capable of getting this right, of righting this ship. We need somebody else to oversee this. And so the building has been in receivership since the fall.
It was about like October, I think.
Yeah, I think in October.
Yeah, they gave the building manager and a few more weeks to try and make repairs. Full foreclosure went through. But as you said, the Freedmen communities sort of received control of the building a couple of months ago at this point.
And it's during this time, again, that we're starting to learn about kind of the story of this building. Now, the most recent thing is, in late November, right as tenants formed a union, the judge overseeing the foreclosure case basically ruled that everybody had to be out of the building by December 12th. There are, just under 40 or so residents still living in the building after the raid. And, from the court's perspective, these repairs are getting made. Like, this building is basically kind of beyond hope. Like, it's really bad. Like, there is no way. And, despite even putting it into receivership, like these repairs aren't happening. It's a dangerous building. It's an uninhabitable building. We cannot have people living in it. However, the quote unquote remedy for this is to essentially kick people out of their home, is to say, you got to find somewhere else to live. And this decision came down right around Thanksgiving. And tenants were like, 2 weeks isn't enough time to find a new place, particularly in this building where, the majority of tenants in this building are, in fact, low income. As you said, it housed a lot of migrants, many of whom, had state rental assistance that then ran out, right?
I was just going to say, when the tenants union was filed, their major requests were, one, for Freedmen communities, the court appointed receiver, to continue to make those repairs in the building, to restore heat and electricity, but also to provide relocation assistance of $7,500 to give them a little bit more time to move out, for CHA to expedite inspection in the moving process. People understood that this was an unlivable building and that most, if not everyone, was going to have to move out in the weeks and months to come. But that, like you said, the speed at which it was happening, for the day they announced the union, this emergency filing to go in, like you say, the week of Thanksgiving, going into what we now know is the snowiest day in Chicago in decades.
And so the tenants union formally filed, a request to the court, basically asking for those things. As you said, they wanted 60 days to move out, which would have put the eviction date February 10, I think, and additional funds to help with relocation. It sounds like the receiver has been helping people potentially on an individual basis, that some individuals have been able to get some help trying to move out. But there's nothing that's sort of like building wide or addressing the union writ large on that front as well. And there have been a lot of folks who've covered this, WBEZ, Block Club, ProPublica, who have been kind of following the story. And someone said in one of those stories something to the effect of like, the raid that happened on September 30th was the tip of the iceberg when it came to this building and the people in it, and sort of some of the issues that this building was facing.
No, it's the nexus of various crises happening in Chicago all at once. And South Shore is a neighborhood that we've had to come back time and time again to talk about, in terms of it is a neighborhood that is simultaneously facing generational disinvestment, that is facing some of the highest rent increases, some of the highest investor property increases across the city as major developments are happening in the backyard, like the Obama Presidential Center. And also, it is one that saw a ton of new arrivals seek housing there over the last 4 years.
That zip code, 60649,
Mm-hmm.
more families who received state rental assistance, the assistance for new arrivals, ended up in that zip code than in any other zip code in the city.
And again, for so many, the eyes were on this building while the building was being raided and people were being zip tied. And since, nearly 20 of those new arrivals have been deported, but no charges were filed against people. And now folks are being kind of left to pick up the pieces of their lives and figure it out as people move on. At every point when you read this story, it is absolutely devastating.
The frustrating part to me is like, it really kind of lays bare the limitations of sort of the legal system when it comes to dealing with, problem landlords, right? Landlords who, again, the city sued this landlord for building code violations. So there was a sort of track record of building code violations. It was known that there were problems at this building.
It failed 18 of 21 inspections over the last few years.
The bank itself, the owner of the building, had defaulted on loans. So in addition to, actual problems at the building, there were money problems. But in the end, it seems like the people who are getting punished by actions of the actual property owner and property managers are the people who live there. And, there were at various points over this fight, which, like I said, stretches back well beyond this fall. There were points where the owner, the manager, even the city to some degree, tried to make the claims like, oh, well, there's a lot of squatters. There are people who are there without leases. There were concerns about crime in and around the building. And, inspectors who said that they, couldn't go in because of criminal activity going on in the building. But the tenants themselves, a lot of them say that, number one, crime has gone down over the time that there have been issues at the building. And number two, have said that, the people who have been trying to help clean things up have been the residents themselves, have been the tenants themselves.
And that some of these new arrivals was paying their money just like us and was trying to raise their families and get by with their jobs in the neighborhood just like us.
And again, it's the remedy for a building falling apart. You're like, of course, get the people out of this building. You want to talk about the housing authority waiting list, right? You want to talk about public housing and the ability or inability to get into that. We don't necessarily have a place to then house people. So if the remedy is to get people out, that's it. They're out. And I think that to me is the most sort of frustrating element of this entire story is the system, even when it is sort of working correctly, doesn't actually help the people who are going to be most hurt. The other thing to remember is immigration operations are still ongoing. Operation Midway Blitz maybe has wound down. Border Patrol agents, not seeing them necessarily on the streets of Chicago as frequently, but, there were protests in Elgin over the weekend when ICE agents, there was a standoff. They were pursuing somebody. That person went into an apartment building and, ICE agents were kind of in a standoff. Protesters came down and, to protest ICE agents being there. Tear gas was thrown, sort of flashbangs off, and they did eventually arrest this person, but, not after clashes with protesters. And so this to say that, it's right. There are so many of these stories that we could trace over time, right? Of how long before we then find out something else new about this particular arrest or this other arrest that happened, 2 weeks ago or whatever the case might be.
We've seen, obviously, federal agents deploy chemical weapons on people at least 50 times across the city, but that's also happening in the Chicago suburbs just as aggressively. We started this story with, these operations are not over, and the consequences of them are something we're going to be dealing with. But again, the actual physical raids are still happening in and around the city, and something we are still tracking. I'm already knowing that little snowstorm around Thanksgiving in Chicago got some of y'all dreaming of a white Christmas, and luckily Paramount Theater in Aurora got you covered with their production of the beloved holiday musical. Them dance numbers, epic. The costumes I'm hearing are spectacular. And I know ever since I said Snowy White Christmas at the top, you've been singing the song in your head. It's all good, you can admit it. That's because this show is a family favorite that brings generations together year after year, where pageantry and spectacle come to life on the stage, running now through January 11th in downtown Aurora. Don't miss this iconic holiday production. Get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com. December is in full swing at the House Museum. The River North Museum is decked out this holiday season with dazzling exhibits to keep you warm, including The Land of Oz Beyond the Page, featuring objects from or inspired by the 1939 film, including a replica of the Ruby Slippers, original costumes, scripts, production memos, and artworks that made the beloved books come to life. Maybe a field trip for the Wicked lovers in your life. And to really light things up, Tiffany Lamps Beyond the Shade examines the materials Tiffany Studios used to create their astounding output of lighting designs in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Plus, Santa pulling up at the museum on Saturday, December 13th with the elves and professional photographer in tow. Or you could just chill out at a free silent book club on Wednesday, December 17th. Learn more about everything going down this December at DreeHouseMuseum.org. So last week we reported Chicago saw its snowiest day in November in decades, and now reports are saying this has been the snowiest start to winter in almost 50 years. I seen a lot of videos over the weekend of people kind of holding the hands of people who finally jumped off the porch and decided to move to Chicago, as reports of the demise of the classic Chicago winter unfortunately have been drastically overstated.
Greatly exaggerated, as they say.
Greatly exaggerated. Yeah, the start of this winter has felt like the closest thing to my childhood that we've had in years, which is not to say that like the polar vortex, the snap of bone-chilling freeze that we've experienced a few times every winter over the last few years hasn't been absolutely terrifying and haunting and held up to Chicago's reputation as, kind of a tough place to endure the winter. But particularly the snow.
The last few winters have been mild, number one, overall.
Especially if we're talking about snow that sticks on the ground. But I look out the window right now
and they have not been as snowy. There has not been as much precipitation.
Nah, this snow is out here thriving right now. It's loving it. It is not melting as fast as the previous 1-2 day snows that we've experienced over the last couple of years.
I feel for my transplant friends out here. I can speak to you directly as a fellow transplant myself. I have the privilege of having lived here in the 2010s during the 2014 and 2015 polar vortexes that dumped like 20 inches of snow at some point, right? So I've lived through this, so this was not totally a surprise to me. But I did move back here in 2021. And I was kind of surprised. I was like, where are these really cold winters? It's the thing that literally everybody in my family, everybody who lives back home asks me about, which is, how is the winter? How is the winter? And so if you also moved here during that time, welcome. We're glad to have you, and we're going to get through this together. It's going to be great.
I feel like a lot of people have been hearing about the legend of Dibs, but the last few winters haven't like the last time I really remember seeing Dibs kind of in full force was probably, I think it was 2020, like during the pandemic, and I was really out there huffing it. And I remember seeing tables and chairs and little religious bus and mop buckets in the streets. But I will say, the last week or so, last couple of weeks, I'm seeing my fair share of cones and chairs out in these streets.
Yeah. So to remind people, the concept of dibs, if you are unfamiliar, you better get familiar because people have strong opinions about it. But basically, the concept is snow comes down and you park on the street and you have shoveled out a parking space for yourself. And you don't want anyone else to take it. So you stick something out. A chair is the sort of classic symbol, but it could be literally anything to claim that spot for when you inevitably return because you want to save your hard work. It is worth noting that this is technically illegal. You are not supposed to do this. You can't save public parking spots.
Some alders will go around with the trash folks and throw your shit away.
Yes, it has happened.
I'd like to see it. I like to see a good dibs out there. I've done it once or twice. I like to see it.
When I moved back to Chicago, I explicitly was looking for apartments that had parking spaces because I moved here in February and I did not want to deal with the concept of dibs. I was like, I don't want to try it. I don't want to try my luck. I don't want
to do this.
No.
I've probably had various opinions on it at different times, but I will say at this point,
yeah, I think it's shifted.
Yeah, I don't drive nearly as much and don't have to park. But yeah, I don't know. I at this point, I'm like, now that I'm seeing it, and it's been a few years, I'm like, you know what? Do your thing. I kind of like I just saw a video of some lady who got a note about I don't know if they moved somebody's thing or
they saw it and then moved it and then got a note.
Is that yes? And somebody said, you lucky they ain't wait for your ass. And so, it's sort of like the drama at other people's Thanksgivings. Like I like to see it from a distance.
Philosophically, I am opposed to dibs just because I generally think public rights of way should be public and, there should be a sense of collective camaraderie during the winter. However, I would never take that philosophy to practice by moving someone's dibs. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I would never do such a thing because I am conflict avoidant and I don't need that smoke. I don't need it. I don't need it at all. But philosophically, I'm opposed to it. And I think it's not necessarily a good community practice.
I hear that.
Speaking of good community practices, though, one thing to remind folks of are the rules around shoveling sidewalks. If you own your property, you are responsible for shoveling the sidewalk outside of your property. If you are a renter, then your property manager / landlord is responsible for shoveling the sidewalk outside of your property. It is a good thing to do. It's a nice thing to do. Do not let it ice over because it becomes a massive hazard for everyone, but of course, especially for people with disabilities who may struggle to navigate that ice. Do you have a snow tip that, like, when it snows?
You know me, Simone. I'm out here in a hoodie and a jean jacket.
I know you don't even have a real winter coat. It hurts me. It hurts me.
And I almost bought one, but I bought a bubble coat instead.
That is painful to me. I have multiple winter coats. I've got the snow boots that go up to the calf. I've got the long snow boots. I do not mess around when it comes to snow. My one tip for cold weather and snow, whether you are shoveling, whether you are dibsing, whatever you've got going on, is first thing when you get home from being outside, walking around, especially regardless of what kinds of shoes you're wearing, even if you've got the nicest snow boots, replace those socks. Take off the socks, warm your feet up, replace them. It'll be the best thing you ever do to warm yourself up. If you're sitting there in your cold socks wondering, why am I not getting warm? It's the socks. That's why.
Yeah. My only tip is it'll pass. Get through it, check in on your peoples. That's all I got for you. Me and my siblings got my mom an Aura frame a couple years back, and I think it's one of the best gifts we have given her in recent years. It's a digital picture frame that sits right in her foyer when you walk in the front door. We're able to load it up with pictures of us, vacation pics, childhood pictures, and we still keep adding to it. My sister's wedding photos are going on there real soon. Is one way we can keep marking the special occasions and let moms know we're thinking of her. As you're hunting for gifts this season, an Aura frame is a thoughtful, personal gift that keeps on giving even after the holidays are over. Trust me, I love seeing it every time I go to visit. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code CityCast at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a global streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema. On Mubi, stream beautiful hand-picked films anytime, anywhere. Right now, you can stream all the episodes of Hal and Harper, created by and starring Cooper Raiff, alongside Lily Reinhart and Mark Ruffalo. It's a funny, heartfelt, and sometimes heartbreaking look at the bond between siblings and how growing up together can shape who we become. Critics are calling it profoundly relatable and pitch perfect. Hal and Harper is your next must watch. You can see it and so much more exclusively on Mubi, and the best part, you can try it free for 30 days. Just head to Mubi.com/CityCast25. That's MUBI.com/CityCast25. As the sidewalks are getting snowier and snowier, people may stop seeing these delivery robots that have slowly been popping up around the city of Chicago over the last few years. I have not gotten a delivery by one of them yet, but I have walked across a few. Simone, have you come across one of these clankers?
I saw one actually a couple years ago in West Town, like rolling along, I think like Chicago Avenue or something. And I was really surprised to see it because I was like, this seems like more of a San Francisco thing. I don't know if Chicago had these robots.
I've seen videos of them for a few years.
Yeah, in Block Club, I learned that former Mayor Lori Lightfoot actually signed off on a pilot back in 2022. So these have kind of been popping up a little bit, but there is now a sort of really concentrated pilot on the north side of Chicago. And what I have encountered, and here I'm going to admit to one of my biggest secret shames here, is I order an obscene amount of delivery from Uber Eats. And so I immediately noticed when I was given the option to request a robot delivery instead of a human delivery for some of the purchases that I was making. And I have requested it a couple of times. A, because I kind of wanted to see what would happen, and B, because I was ordering from spots that were so close that it's embarrassing to be ordering delivery from them. And I figured those would be good candidates for a robot delivery. But the few times that I have requested it, a human still ended up delivering my food anyway. So I haven't had a chance to actually get the delivery, but I've seen it and I've seen them around, and I've seen the option. What do you think about this, Jacoby? How do you feel about this?
I walked past one the other day and it just was parked in the most inconvenient spot in Westwood. I feel like it was right on the corner where like Abba is and like Punch Bowl Social. And it was in my way. And like I've seen people like trying to move them and they seem very difficult to move. I'm not really for anything that is noticeably going to impact people's ability to make money in the city. I don't love the Uberification of, just like transportation, delivery, like taxis, like I don't love it. But it is a good source of people making money. So anytime I see them, I do know it's one less person who's able to get the already scarce deliveries across Chicago. And so I'm not a huge, like, this is not like the scooter pilots a few years ago when it was like, do we want all of these random scooters and bike companies to just be plopping these around the city. I was like, ugh, I know that they cram the sidewalks and like people are riding on the sidewalks and they could be, and like the injuries have gone up and they're dangerous, but I was like, oh, I really love the scooters. This is one of those pilots that I'm not really interested in.
So this expansion rolled out in late September, particularly the company used by Uber Eats and other food delivery apps, Serve Robotics. You know, they've got partnerships with some, like more than 100 restaurants across Chicago. The people who run these companies say that, you know, that they are, they try to argue, for example, that like having fewer delivery drivers on the road, for example, is sort of a net win for safety, right? That like, drivers, there's some, something like, drivers can be distracted or they can, be rushing or whatever. Whereas the robot, has very strict protocols that it follows. I do think like,
of course, that's what they gonna say.
I'm with you. They also put the cute little faces on them and they give them names.
Yeah, trying to give them names and stuff. Like, yeah, not huge for the slow robot takeover, the desensitization of these things, just being out in the public and having these sort of doe eyes. I'm not a big fan of it. Again, I don't know how much time they're saving, how efficient they are. Like the idea of like the restaurant, like having a fleet of these and just like dropping food immediately, and you're not having to wait for people to park and that whole song and dance. And I know like late at night, those lines can get really backed up for people. Like I get the things it's trying to solve, but the idea of more of these kind of taking up sidewalks, kind of displacing people's jobs, the jobs people do have in this city. Not a huge fan of it. And again, they do look a little creepy.
It's wild because when you see the option, Jacoby, to ask to request the robot, one of the things it says is that like you don't need to tip it. Like tip, it'll subtract whatever you put the tip on because you don't have to tip the robot. Which is just one of these, like, I think this is the thing. And there's someone quoted in the Block Club story who sort of describes this experience of like running into one of these robots with their kid and then having to step aside for the robot. And they're like, that feels wrong. Like, I shouldn't have to make room for this thing. And there is this kind of like odd, I don't quite know what it is. It's tough for me personally to get excited about the robotification of anything. It is just going to be a very tough sell for me, and I think they just introduce. I've watched too much science fiction. I can't do it. I absolutely can't do it, and I think the experience. I don't know. I already have so many moral quandaries with my Uber Eats problem. I don't know that I need to add robots to my list of moral quandaries when it comes to ordering delivery. I'm still going to try to get one because I want to see it. I want to see how it works. I'm curious about it, but I can't say as a pattern I like it overall.
Yeah, I was just looking into the technology on how it works and all the different AI and sensor components, the LiDAR cameras and ultrasonic sensors. But it does look like just this sort of slow pedaling, like it's always sort of start stopping, which is obviously important, but I don't know, it just looks like a really clunky overall process. And, it does feel like the soft launch, like this seems like a safe place to test putting robots in public spaces and testing out autonomous vehicle technology. And again, a lot of things that will have some broader consequences. But yeah, I'm not buying the soft launch of the robots on the streets. I'm good on it. So this is one of those Northside petitions I can get down with. It's a lot that I'm just like, it's a little overkill, but this is one of them Facebook group petitions that I'm like, all right. I got a point here. If somebody is listening and they want to be in full support of the robots, like, we hear our bias and we cool with that. But if you want If you want to have your point on record, reach out to us at 773-780-0246 if you are in defense of the delivery robot. And, if you make a good point, you may hear yourself on the podcast. I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alisea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who has already signed up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor over the last couple of days, including Destry M, Pedro J.W., Brett W., Cindy H., and my guy, Kyle H. Getting your name read on the podcast is just one of the perks I mentioned before when you become a neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We need about 75 more people to join by the end of the week, and I'm going to be updating that number as we go. So please head over and join now. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. We can't close the doors without some good news. Shout out to our friends over at Market Box who are celebrating 5 years as a mutual aid project on Chicago's South Side, sourcing fresh foods from Midwest farms and delivering them to families. They are celebrating their 5-year anniversary with a party this Sunday. I will drop a link for you in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you for listening, reading, for going over to membership.citycast.fm and signing up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor and securing your exclusive CityCast Chicago beanie. And of course, being back here bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.